Welcome to the Two Geeks and a Microphone podcast, your one-stop shop for television, movie, video games, comic books, book reviews, and more. Now, without further ado, here's Steven and Mike.
Welcome, everybody, to the Two Geeks and a Microphone podcast. I am your co-host, Mr. Stephen Foster, along with my friend, Mr. Michael Shanks. Mike, say hey to everybody.
Good morning to all you geeks out there in Geekdom land.
All right, Mike, we've got our special guest, recurring special guest with us, Aaron McCoy from Geek with a Bible. Hey, man.
Hello, all of you out there in the digital world listening in. You are now tapped into a artificial reality. You feel like you have friends right there with you, but are we really there? What is real? Am I real? What exists? Are we in the Matrix or are we in the Truman Show? I don't know.
That was great. I forgot about the Truman Show. Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah, that's kind of the precursor.
Right, yeah.
In its own way, kind of some similar ideas of how do we know what's real?
You know, I didn't even think about putting those two together, but I guess you could make some connections there. I didn't consider that.
well, as everybody can tell, you guys, thanks for listening in. You can tell that our topic is going to be The Matrix. So we're doing this to get ready. Whoa. Yeah, right.
Are you going to take the red pill or are you going to take the blue pill?
Oh, that is the question.
Right.
That's a good one.
We thought it'd be great to have this discussion because there's a lot of philosophical stuff in it. And Aaron, I love your insights and your thoughts and really how you can nail some of this stuff. So thanks for joining us today. And this is all precursor for Matrix 4. Mm-hmm. Which I am excited about. I'm excited about seeing.
Yes, like I fully embrace. It could be amazing, and it could just be a heap of crap. And even that unsure, like it's got me excited. I'm like, it's kind of like, you go onto a roller coaster that's really sturdy, he's been there for years, and then you go on the old rickety Carnival roller coaster. There's a different level of thrill there where you're really not sure if you're going to make it or not.
Is this thing going to fall apart?
Exactly. Because in some ways, which I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about, the sequels have very, very mixed feelings on. And in some ways, I'm hoping that there's a little bit of redemption with the new one, that it kind of maybe ends on a more satisfactory note, but it could just add on to the pile of All
right, I have to state I have not been a big Matrix fan.
Mm-hmm.
That's all right.
When I remember it came out in 1999,
mm-hmm.
and I watched the first one back in that time, and I didn't like it at all. And I was like, and I think part of it was I just don't get this. I don't get all this, and it doesn't make sense to me. And so I just didn't like it. So I never watched 2 and 3 at all. I rewatched 1 and 2 this week, and I have to say I liked it better than I remembered. We'll put it that way.
Okay.
I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. I'm kind of getting into the story a little bit. I do want to see what in the world is going on with this 4th one. Mm-hmm. So it's piqued my interest for the 4th one. It's done its job. Let's put it that way.
Good.
Yep. I will say this for everybody who's listening. I'm just going to go ahead and give the spoiler alert now. Because it's, the movie's been out 20 years. The first one came out 20 years. We are probably going to talk about the second one, maybe the third one, kind of a thing.
So you want a spoiler alert?
Yeah, sock it to me. Give me the spoiler alert. I need the spoiler alert sound. Here he goes. He's getting the spoiler alert.
Yeah.
See, I didn't have it ready. I should have given it that.
There you
Did
go.
it play?
Yeah.
Did it play on your end?
You didn't hear it?
I didn't.
Oh, no. I don't know what's going on.
Okay, it's okay. It probably is picking up on your recording, so that's all that matters. Everybody, we do backup recordings. One of us is recording on Zoom. That's me. Mike records through GarageBand, so it'll probably pick up because you're doing the soundboard through that. I bet you it'll do that.
Yeah, I'm sure it will.
All right, everybody. So spoilers. We are going to talk about Matrix 1, Matrix 2, maybe Matrix 3. Should we give our reviews, something out of 5 for each one? That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we can do that, especially because I remember one of your guys' first episodes. I remember Mike saying that he really hated these. So, I'm curious to hear. Yeah, what his how many bended spoons are we going to give?
Oh, I like that. Bended spoons. That's a good one. That's a good one.
Well done. Okay.
All right. Well, we'll let our guests start first. Aaron, you go ahead.
So, yeah, I mean, the first one, I'm really psyched about talking about this. This was one of those, actually, both of them were very formidable movies for me. So I grew up in a very, we weren't allowed to watch a lot of movies. We'll just say that there was a lot of things we couldn't watch. And I'm sort of the young punk here. So I was kind of just at the age where we could kind of sneak in a few R-rated movies here and there. And so we saw a thing with Matrix. It's like one of those that's just over the R-rated, line. There's no F-bombs. There's the violence. There's a lot, but it's not exploding blood everywhere, Kill Bill style. It's just kind of, they get shot and they're down. And so this was one, certainly was big for that, really intense. But yeah, this was one of those things that I just watched over and over again. It's one of 2 movies that I intentionally watched twice in the same day and was very happy with it. I'm just like, okay, let's watch it again. Yeah, this one and Fight Club, both films that I just, which came out in the same year as well.
Oh wow!
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yes, very formidable,
okay.
Very mind blowing. What the heck is going on here? Both very, what I like to call our ink blot films, which is kind of you watch it and you get different messages from it. You ask different people what they think about it, and they have different interpretations. So even something I heard that's interesting, politically, we got these 2 terms that come from the Matrix. One is being woke, is a Matrix term, and the other is so that's more of the leftist idea. And then the other thing is taking the red pill. That's something more people on the right will say. So both of these are, basically saying, oh, I'm awake to what's going on and how we're being manipulated. But yet it's 2 very different approaches to what the Matrix actually is. Yeah. So I like that. I like those kind of ink blot type things. You do also have the action is revolutionary. Yep. The fact that they could get the bullet time stuff. There's never been anything like that. This was one of the first movies that had the actors actually in there fighting each other, actually learning the kung fu. Because normally it was all, stunt doubles. Arnold Schwarzenegger comes out. He's like, oh, I get that Java. And then you have, some other person run through and that was it. But this, you actually see, Keanu Reeves and Lawrence Fishburne and forgetting his name.
Carrie Ann Moss.
Yeah. All these people, you're actually seeing their faces and they're actually fighting. And then, which they continue to do on with, Star Wars and Phantom Menace. I know that was a big deal for that as well. That all their these big choreographed fight scenes.
Liam Neeson
actors.
Yeah.
So you had a lot of that. You had this thing of intelligent action because before you often think of action movies as just being sort of kind of a lower form of entertainment, almost like a monster truck rally or a, professional wrestling, which is fun. I'm not knocking. I actually went to a professional wrestling match 2 weeks ago. A lot of fun, but it is dumb entertainment. Okay. I'm not going to lie. I enjoy that. But But you actually have real depth with real, really, really deep things. So yeah, so Matrix is that is 5 bendy spoons.
Wow.
To me, it's a top tier film. There's a few things that are a little dated now, rewatching it.
Mm-hmm.
There are
1999. It was edge cutting, special effects, style, the whole bit. Mm-hmm.
Yes. But now, like some of the things that, like I noticed this time, like it's just so 90s, I guess. Just like it's really like whenever they're in the it's funny because whenever they're out of the Matrix, they just have kind of worn clothes. They're just kind of there. But whenever they're in the Matrix, it's like, okay, guys, we got to look cool. And so it's like, we need our sunglasses and we need our black clothes and we're going to look really cool. And they're just walking around the normal world. There's like some guy with donuts and some guy in a suit, whatever. And then it's like, no, we've got the cool look going on. And,
right.
And so that just looks kind of goofy now, but I still love it. I mean, it's still, the first one, especially, this is absolutely a top tier 5 out of 5 film for me.
Nice. Okay. All right.
Wow.
Well, I'll go next because I guess we'll all go downhill from here. No, I'm just well, same thing for me. The first Matrix movie was the first movie that I saw more than 3 times in a theater.
Wow.
I actually paid theater prices. I'd have a friend. I went to go see it, and I loved it. I was like, "Oh my goodness, this is incredible!" And then I had a friend say, "Oh, I'd love to go see it." I was like, "I'll go see it with you," And I would. And I had another friend. I want to go. I think I'll go see it. I'll go with you, kind of a thing. And it was really good. Very confusing in the first half because you're like, "What in the world is going on?" Kind of thing. And then once you take the pill, then it moves into, you're like, oh my goodness. And then the bullet time, the fight sequences, the bullet time, I was like, what in the world? And then the little philosophical stuff, because I was like, all right, I like this. I like that. The favorite line in that film is there's a difference between knowing the path and walking the path. Mm-hmm. And I enjoy that line. And I was like, yeah, you can know all this stuff, but if you don't act on it, or if you don't, work it, then, there is a difference. And so I liked how it did that. The action sequences, I actually give this one, the first one, I give 4.5 out of 5 bendy spoons. And
okay,
it'll really blow your mind later when we say there is no spoon.
All right. Well, now we come to mine.
One other scene. I got to talk about one other scene.
Okay, go ahead.
My favorite scene, and it is a little dated now, but at the time was incredible, was the lobby scene. When they go in to save, I'm like, oh, they got the, you got the music going and then all the bullets flying. And it was like, it was so much. It was overwhelming. Just all the different things are like, oh my gosh, this is so good. Then they did the bullet time on the roof. I was like, that's so awesome.
Nice.
Kind of a thing.
All right,
Mike.
So I've been pretty vocal in the past. I was not a fan of The Matrix whatsoever. And I think part of my dislike of this film, at least part of my dislike, is the things that I had remembered from way back when. And one of the things was actually the fight scenes. I was annoyed with the whole stop, slow motion. I was so annoyed with that. I remember when it came out, I'm like, I hate this. This is stupid. I don't like the look of it. And then it was like every movie for the next 10 years afterwards.
Everybody did it.
Everyone did it. I go, oh, great. Here's the Matrix crap again. I hate this. They're just taking away from the Matrix. And the Matrix I didn't like to begin with.
Didn't even Scary Movie have some Matrix stuff in it?
Oh, I'm sure it did. But
Bigelow even had a reference to it. Yeah.
So, rewatching it though, I was like, you know what? That didn't overpower the film like I remember it. Actually, there's actually less of that than I remember it. And I think I was just so turned off by that. I just completely wrote this movie off, and I hated it. So rewatching it and giving it another look, I actually liked it better. I enjoyed it more this time. I was able to turn that off.
So you were able. So you're saying it was much more better experience.
Yes, in Two Geeks term, it was much more betterer. And you know, it's fun when we say that because it drives my wife crazy. You know, that's not a word. Yeah,
we know it's not proper English, right?
Right.
Aaron?
It's our word.
Yes, yeah, you can. There, I'm an English major. There's whole debates about what makes something actually a word. So, so I can send you the article to stand that. If I've given it meaning, then it is a word.
That's
so,
right.
Yes.
So
tell her she's being imposing her standards on
Stop imposing your standards.
all right. Anyway, let's get off that before I get in trouble.
yeah.
So, with that said, rewatching this, I actually liked it a lot better than I remembered. I will give it 4 bendy spoons.
Okay, I will take it.
I'll give it
I
4
will
bendy
take it.
spoons.
Oh,
That works.
okay.
Considering before I probably would have given it 1.5.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
a huge improvement.
And I would have
I'm
broke
curious.
and I would have
I'm
broke
curious.
one of those spoons too.
So now, because you said though that you just recently watched the second film, so now, which I have a lot. Like for me, I would probably, I'm maybe 3.5, 4 on the second film. There's a lot to talk about. Maybe even just a 3. But what was your thoughts about the second movie?
Oh, the second one, I think I would give that a 3 also.
Okay.
I think the highlight of the second is Agent Smith. And beyond that, it was just
Yeah.
I don't think it was as good as the first.
Are you talking about the Agent Smith as the character and how he acted it, or?
Yeah,
fight, the multi Agent Smith fight.
I liked the way he acted it. Yeah, I liked the way he acted it. I thought he did very good as Agent Smith. I really liked the character actually.
I thought he did really good.
And I loved the whole being multiples of him. I thought that was cool, and the fight was pretty incredible actually.
Yeah.
Now the fight got a little out of hand. Because I mean, at one point, you got so many of them. There is no way Neo could take them down. It's like, okay, come on.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the problems with the second one is you get into this whole Superman problem. That whenever you've got something that is, completely overpowered, how do you make that still a conflict there? Because the whole thing story is conflict. It's that there is something very hard, very challenging to face. And you got to see how you go, man, how does this person overcome that? Which they did masterfully in the first movie. The whole buildup of you see an agent, you run. Like you don't fight this battle, period. They did such a good job building that up. And so then whenever he finally decides, oh, I'm going to fight this sucker, it's like, okay. And then, and then he finally kills him. And then, oh, wait a minute, they just take somebody else. And so it's just this never ending battle that it's just, you are screwed, you are done. And then to see him finally, becomes the one. He finally
even to see the agents
chosen one.
Away. That last scene where the agents, the 2 leftover agents, they ran away.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. To where now the machines are scared and running away. So then you've got that, which is an amazing ending for the first film, because you can end that just fine. And it's like, okay, they've got their Messiah. He's going to defeat them. And it's good. We're done. But then the action, as far as a lot of them in the second one, definitely, like, it's cool. But there is something, you do not feel threatened for Neo, like, at any point. Maybe the Agent Smith fight, but besides that, there's zero threat for Neo.
I would say the Agent Smith fight, just the sheer numbers, was overwhelming. And from that point of view, but then he just kind of runs away, for lack of a better term.
Right, but it's like he keeps continuing to beat him and beat him and beat him. And I know they kind of built him up as Superman. Heck, they even make the comment, "Where's Neo? He's doing the Superman thing again."
Right.
So yeah, they built him up as Superman, but and I'm like, okay, Superman wouldn't just take out a few of them. Superman would just like pulverize the whole lot of them. They would just be gone. He would eliminate them. If it was Superman. So I don't feel he was quite the Superman level because they kept coming at him and he'd beat a few at a time and a few at a time. And that's when I'm sitting here going, yeah, there's so many of them, they would overtake him by this point. That to me is where it got a little ridiculous. I'm like, I think it would have been better if they would have Supermaned him and he would have just blown through them and taken them all out.
Yeah, like you can get, like I call that kind of shotgun action that it just comes, bang,
right?
Awesome.
Yeah,
oh yeah, okay.
That's a good description.
Yeah, which I love. So you get like that in I think of the first Iron Man movie whenever he goes into that Eastern country to save the people, and he's just so powered, nothing can stop him. He blows up the tank, kills all the terrorists instantly. Right. And it's awesome. But, that whole scene is like 2 minutes. And then that's it. As to where with Neo, I mean, we have in that second movie, I think we have at least 4 kung fu scenes with him.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And yeah. And so you can't do that every time.
So Mike, what's your score for the second movie then?
I'd probably give that a 3.
A 3?
Yeah.
Aaron, what was your score?
If we're talking entertainment level, so one of the things that made me like with this film, so this film's very close to me because it was one of the things that made me really love movies because it's so confusing. Like what they get whenever they talk to the architect, and he's talking in this really, really high philosophical terms where you can barely understand what he's saying, which is how, if you ever attempt to read philosophy, it's impenetrable. It's horrible. I like to read people who understand philosophy. I'll listen to them.
Right.
I'm not picking up their actual work. It's
I am
too
so
much.
the philosophy for dummies reader.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I'll stick to comic books.
Hey, which in sometimes can be you read Watchmen. That can be philosophy for dummies. There you go. That's
sure.
One of these. You can definitely get in there. So yeah, it's there's so many levels, so many layers, and I had so much discussion with people of like, what is going to happen? What on earth are they going to? Because essentially, like, the ending, basically, they're saying everything that we were told to believe is BS, is what happened at the end there. Because the whole thing of, we have this prophecy of the one, and everything seems to be like this. So it's almost like I was thinking about it because there's a lot of spiritual and religious, very intentional imagery and language and things throughout the spirituality. It's Christianity, especially, very close to these stories. So essentially what it's kind of like, the first one is sort of a movie of salvation. It's this thing of understanding, we are born in this world that's we're in an enslavement, that we're born into this thing. But there's a deeper reality in there that we have to be awakened from. And you got all these things with Neo, a very Christ-like figure who dies and rises again, who's the one, who's all these different things. And so this is sort of a story of salvation. Then you get to the second one. It's sort of a story of, what's a good word for it? Sort of a dark night of the soul, a deconversion almost. It's almost like learning things that, because I know I went through this after high school. Like I start actually, because I used to go, oh, atheists, they're so stupid. Oh, they're so dumb. They think we came from monkeys. What dumb people they are. And then I start actually listening to the atheists, actually hearing their arguments. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. This is a stronger case than I realized. And so you have all these questions and all these new things and certain things that you start doubting. And so that's kind of the second one, because they realize, because the prophecy wasn't true. Neo's powers comes from an anomaly. It's a mistake. It's just something that happens. And he happens to be the seventh one that happens. And the machines rely on this. They have factored that anomaly into the system. So the whole thing, allowing a few people to be free, allowing Zion to exist, the machines allow that. So even Zion, thinking we're free, thinking we're outside of the system, they are still in the system.
They're still controlling us.
Yes. It's kind of like, I think about the person who's like the goth, who's like, I'm not joining your corporate lifestyle. I'm not endorsing all that. So I'm going to go shop at Hot Topic, which is
and post pictures with my iPhone onto Facebook and Instagram and
yes.
Now wait a minute. I shopped at Hot Topic.
You're okay. Yeah. So
were you wearing your black eyeshadow though?
No, they have the best T-shirts.
Yeah. Oh no, they do. Oh,
I agree.
No, I've got things there. No, it's great. But the idea of I'm out of the system, I'm free. Yeah. You don't control me, and it's like, oh, buddy, you're still in it.
So that would be would that term I mentioned a second ago, but deconstruction.
Yes,
really.
Yes.
I mean,
that's the term I was looking for. Deconstruction. So the first movie is salvation, second movie is deconstruction, and the third movie is reconstruction. So figuring out all these things of what the heck does this mean? Because his power is going outside of the Matrix. That he's able to stop the Sentinels outside, and that shouldn't happen because all the things of the one is tied to the Matrix. And so there were so many questions, and I had so many discussions with people that would go for hours and hours and hours. So this was a very impactful film for me. But at the same time, they designed this movie 2 and 3 to be one long movie. Once I watched them back to back, it works so much better.
Yeah.
Because a normal story is that you have introduction, rising conflict, climax, resolution. That's story structure. This movie we're still in the rising action. There is no actual climax. There is no because you think about like the freeway speed, the freeway chase. That's normally awesome. Like your big climactic scene.
Right.
That takes place at like the hour 20 mark, something like that. It's like we get through this thing that should be the finale, and it's not, and it's still kind of lingering on, and it's just weird. It just doesn't flow right. It doesn't.
So you're telling me that I shouldn't have watched 1 and 2 together?
No, you're good. You're good.
Well, 2 and 3. The reason 2 feels so weird, and let me get my score real quick on that. On 2 is
sure.
2. I give it 2. No, I give it 3 out of 5. I give it 3 out of 5 because the action was phenomenal. The kicking it up a notch on the philosophical level was good. And I do like how you stated that. You've got salvation, deconstruction, because you're right. At the end, it was like, well, wait a minute. Everything I was brought to believe about what this story is just went upside down.
Yes.
With the architect scene. And I was like, what? Kind of a thing. And my other brain was like, I wonder if that actor was supposed to be Sean Connery. And then I did hear that he turned down The Matrix. And the reason he took on the reason he took on the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen was because The Matrix had done so well, and he had turned it down. He's like, well, I better take this movie.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh.
Do you know who they originally wanted to be Neo?
No, who was it?
Will Smith.
Really?
They were pushing hard for Will Smith.
I don't know if I would have bought it with Will Smith.
I don't think so either. He's
in fact, I'm disappointed that Lawrence Fishburne isn't going to be in the fourth film.
Yeah,
We'll get to that.
Okay,
Sure.
All right.
So 3 out of 5. That's my score. I thought the action was phenomenal. I thought the philosophical aspect of it really kicked up a notch and it really made me think. It's probably one of those first movies that I was like, I was so engaged in the story that I really had to deal with some philosophical concepts in order to continue my engagement in the overall story, the overarching story.
You know, it's kind of funny. We watched Dune a few weeks ago.
Yep,
and we did our episode on Dune, and you know, I did not like Dune whatsoever. I thought that is the most boring film I've ever seen in my life. Oops, sorry,
no, you're fine.
I froze up for a second there. I thought that was the most boring film I'd ever seen in my life, and I went into Dune with this positive attitude of, I want to like this movie. I want to really enjoy this. I want this to be one of my favorite sci-fi films. And I finished that movie and I'm like, yeah, it's never going to be top for me, okay? This movie, okay, is a rewatch of a film that I never liked. I walked into this going, all right, I'm going to give this a second chance. I'm probably not going to like this. You know,
do it for the podcast.
Right. I'll do it for the podcast, you know. And I come out actually liking it a lot more than I like Dune. So
you're saying in 20 years you're going to be a raging Dune fan?
I think so.
I kind of doubt that.
In all openness, though, but Aaron, you're saying the same thing. I'm glad you brought this up about Dune. The same thing that happens in Matrix, the second movie, is the same thing that happened in Dune.
Yep.
Dune ended right in the middle of the rising story, and you're like, well, wait a minute. And I'm sorry, but ending a film with just this street fight in Dune I was just like, well, wait a minute. And it's the same exact thing that happened in Matrix. I hated the end of Matrix 2 because it did the same thing. I was like, well, wait a minute. Well, what? That's where you're going to end? Is that? Kind of a thing. So,
yeah.
And I think for me, that was, I think you're really onto something, Aaron, is this whole concept of 2 and 3 should have been one movie. Dune should have been 1 and 2 together because of the.
Well, yeah.
And not that I want to talk more about Dune, but the concept of the you've got 2 stories that were broken up, or 1 story that was broken up into 2 parts. I'm like, and so that's kind of where I'm.
Well, I just wanted to point out the fact that I walked in with all intentions of enjoying and liking Dune, and walked out hating it, and then walked into this with the exact opposite intentions. Yeah. So it's just funny how that turned out.
Expectations can definitely impact a film. It's very strange. I think that's one of the major things for like the Star Wars prequels. Because we've spent our entire childhoods imagining what we would do with these, and
still haven't stopped.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and you just can't live up to what the expectation
what do we call that,
is.
Mike? We call it our own head canon.
That's right. Yes. That's right. Our own head canon.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's interesting how that works.
All right, so we've already briefly touched on, but what about the third film? Now, Mike, you have not seen the third.
I haven't,
right?
But you can go ahead. I mean, that's I'm not worried about spoilers. The movie's how old?
Yeah.
Right. So, Aaron, do you want to go first on this?
So the third one was really my disappointment. That one, which I've got a little more appreciation for, which I need to rewatch now. I've rewatched the first Matrix for this one. I need to go through the 2 and 3 because all these questions I had, all these things built up. So kind of actually same to that point of what we're expecting it's going to be and what we're hoping for. So much of it is just like, don't worry about all those questions. Just whatever. It's because they're talking to the Oracle and he's asking her about the architect. He's like, don't worry about that guy. And so many of these things were just like, but wait, no, you need to explain this more. And you need to tell me what this is. And and so the philosophical idea that they're getting to it just doesn't hold up, and it's definitely disappointing. And even like, because there is a thing of how, I mean, okay, so spoilers. So eventually they just, they come to terms of peace with the robots. And I don't know, they didn't build that up well enough to where I'm happy for the robots that they are continuing. So you get a little bit of that. So something you might want to watch a couple of is the Animatrix. Have you seen those, Steven?
I have them. I think I've seen one or two of them.
So these are like these anime, shorts, kind of like Star Wars Visions.
Okay.
These anime shorts. Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they're canon. They say this is part of the story, and they have one of them that shows like the actual start of the
Rise of the Machines.
Yes, and it's dark. It's dark. Really, really dark.
It's your M-rated anime.
Oh yeah. And that one, they have more sympathy for the robots to some extent, of showing how they were oppressed, that they were
abused.
Abused and all this stuff that didn't come out of nowhere. And that's even a lot of times whenever we get into certain, you really dig into some good versus evil things, and you start to realize that now sometimes there are things that are evil. I'm not going to say, oh, Hitler had a point. No. There are some things that are evil, but there's also a lot of times whenever you look at things, it's like, oh, wait a minute, there's actually two sides here. There's actually some truth in both of these. And I don't think they did enough of showing the robot perspective, showing that the
I agree,
robots
because
are.
I wanted the robot peace. Who wants peace? You guys just mutilated and killed all when you attacked Zion, you did all this and all these people, and it's pretty graphic in some parts. And I'm like, and now it's okay.
Yeah.
What? You set on genocide, and so I'm supposed to feel for you, and you guys have peace. No, that's how I was.
Yeah,
kind of a thing.
Yeah, no, I agree, and they could have done it. Like, I'm fine with the idea. I actually kind of like, because there's this thing of almost coming to terms with the machine, that there is this fact of that, like, we can't fully overcome it. There is an idea of that. There's certain things of that. We are in a fallen world, but I don't know. They just. The ideas are there. It's kind of like with the prequels as well. So there's so many ideas within the Star Wars prequels that I love. I see what they're getting at, but the execution of it just doesn't hold up. It just doesn't do what it's trying to do. So I would say the third film is a failure, since it's, it doesn't really accomplish what it's trying to. So the third one for me is more like a 2.5, something like that.
Yeah.
Cool action. I like the mech suits. I like the final Agent Smith fight, but it's just.
So what you're saying though, when you're comparing it to the prequels in Star Wars, now I agree with you to a certain extent on the prequels, because I've actually come to really appreciate the prequels a lot.
I do too. Yeah.
I actually like those way better than the sequels. That's a total different subject though. But the prequels, in my opinion, were enhanced by the Clone Wars cartoon series. So you're saying that these animated Matrix do the same thing to the Matrix series that the Clone Wars did for the prequels. Am I hearing that correctly?
It gives you some more background and fleshes out the world.
Right.
It's more world building, yes.
Which is what the Clone Wars did. Because the Clone Wars, okay, in the prequels, we didn't quite get the Anakin and Obi-Wan relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, it just was not fleshed out enough. But the Clone Wars really brings that into view.
Yeah.
And gives you a better feeling of that moment in episode 4 when Obi-Wan is talking about Anakin to Luke, and he says, your father was a great star pilot and a good friend. When he says that, you watch the prequels and you're like, really? It didn't really feel like that, though. But then when you watch the Clone Wars, you see it built, and it's like, oh, okay, I get it now. It makes much more sense. It's much more better.
Yeah. Well, because one of the things, I wouldn't go as far as that with the Matrix, the animated things. Like, it helps a little bit, but I mean, it's just, it's a short series. And honestly, just the first. If you watch them, I would just say watch like the first 3. Besides that, you're okay, unless you're just enjoying them. But I would really only recommend the first 3. But it's sort of, I would say it's that without having the Clone Wars show, because so much of the prequels, it's so there's an old writing thing. They say show don't tell, right? Okay. So instead of having somebody go, I am sad, you see, you have the guy crying, so you show the action, you show what's going on instead of just saying it.
Right. The
prequels are all tell don't show, so you got Anakin and Obi-Wan talking in the elevator about like, oh, you fell into the nest of Gundar, and like all these adventure stuff that we're telling you we have a friendship. We're telling you what our adventures are normally like. But what we're seeing is this whiny punk who doesn't get his way, and Obi-Wan having to put him in his place, and that's all the stuff that we're seeing. Even though so I can kind of decipher what you're telling me, I have to kind of insert that into the film. I've got to kind of flesh out what should have been fleshed out naturally. The things that should have just come out organically, I've got to kind of insert my own interpretation into that. And I would say with The Matrix, that is the same thing. That once you kind of peel apart the layers of what they're going for, it definitely enhances it. Because it's one of those problems whenever you really swing for the fences of things and miss. It's really doesn't work well. And this is, I think, the problem with the Star Wars sequels, the trilogy sequels, is that they just went for some good runs. They didn't really try to go for this huge thing. They just kind of played it safe. And like, I don't know anyone who loves the Star Wars sequels, the Disney sequels. I know people who like them. I like them. And I know people who hate them. I don't know anyone who loves them. As we're the same way with the prequels, I too, I've grown to love them. I have deciphered them enough to where I really love them. But yeah, Matrix, it's the same thing. It takes some digging, it takes some conversation, and just the fact that these things has inspired this much conversation. I mean, you could say, well, maybe that makes it a better film. Maybe that makes it a good film. The fact that you have
that's a good point.
Made the conversation going. And I don't think it's supposed to be easy. I think that might be one of the things as well. Maybe you're supposed to dig into it a little more.
But what does that mean for the new one?
Yeah.
I have no idea what to expect for the new one. I really don't. I watched the trailer. I'm interested. I'm interested because, for one thing, in the trailer, it almost appears that Neo has went back into the Matrix and doesn't know who he is anymore, and they've blue pilled him like crazy. Yeah. So he doesn't remember anything. It kind of looks like Trinity might be also in the Matrix and not knowing who she is.
Well,
spoiler.
Let's spoil. So they both.
Well, that's in the trailer. Are we really spoiling anything?
No. I'm spoiling for you for the third film. They both die.
We're about to spoil something.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Well, yeah, but you have this whole
news to him.
But no, it's not that much of a spoiler because you do have this whole concept of rebirth throughout the Matrix,
and that's something really
that's the question.
I don't know what they're going to do with that. Like, I don't know if Neo and Trinity, I mean, maybe they're actually even programs. Maybe they're not actually even human. Maybe they are some kind of algorithm in this new one.
Oh, so they are totally the Matrix then. They are not. Yeah, they're not even Neo and Trinity is what you're assuming.
Yeah,
I'm assuming. Yeah, because,
interesting.
Okay. Yeah, because so here's what happens at the end: is one, Trinity gets killed at the end, and then Neo I say he gets killed from a physical body standpoint.
Yeah.
He gets killed.
So it's left open-ended whether Neo's actually dead or not.
A little bit.
It
Okay.
is
A little bit.
but you're like, yeah, it's like he's dead, you know.
So I mean, there is a possibility in this new film that Neo is alive and he's just been because they show that he's being medicated with the blue pill.
Yes.
I mean,
I think it's his
over.
consciousness.
What?
I think it's his consciousness to a certain degree because his consciousness gets changed. You know, we picked that up in the second film. I just think his consciousness is still there, and they're blue pilling him. But I think she is a program.
But okay, so
That's my opinion.
My question is,
I'm not hard passed on it.
my question is, if he is also a program, why would they need to do that to him? Because they would already control him.
Yeah, it's an interesting question because at the end they die in like the main, the source of the Matrix at like the main base. So both their bodies are there. So I don't know if the machines regenerate them somehow, but then why would they need to regenerate them? Mm-hmm. Something I just thought of, which is very interesting, this idea of the red pill and the blue pill. I never thought about this before because the trailer very much looks like, being medicated. So one thing that we use, in our society, which there's a lot of debate on, using medication that helps you to function within society. And there's some people who would say like, no, they need to be free. You need to, have full, because some people are certainly over medicated.
Sure.
And so as I mentioned earlier, I'm sorry, when I'm talking Matrix, my brain's just going 1,000 different directions.
No problem.
I work at a special needs high school. And I've seen the students who, when they're not on their pills, literally doing cartwheels in the class, like cannot sit down, rolling around. Like, it's like, oh, okay. There are people that if they don't have their medication,
yes,
like they are beyond any kind of functionality. So I'm certainly not anti-medication, but then you also see the people who, it's just a kid who's hyper, or something. Some people who are over-medicated and people who, because one of the things I had a student just recently, he was saying, it's like, yeah, I got this new medication. He said, it's okay. He said, I don't feel like I'm me. It's like, I don't feel like I'm me. I'm just kind of here.
Well,
and so you,
in my almost 20 years in serving in children's ministry through the church, I haven't seen what you've seen.
Yeah.
I've only had one incident that comes anywhere near what you saw. But I agree with you. There are some kids that, if they're not on their medication, and I've been told by our children's pastor that he's heard stories of parents who are like, well, we take them off the medication for the weekends, and he's like, what do you do that for? Huh. Right. Huh. And some of that comes down to trying to save money and stuff like that. And we won't get into the semantics of all that. Yeah. But,
and there's a lot of debate.
Right. But I'm kind of with you on that. I think there's I think there's a certain need for it at times, but it's different for every individual.
Well, we look back at our previous Joker conversation.
Yeah.
And how whenever he got off the medication, he felt better. But he was,
Right.
Yeah. So, but then the other thing I just had this thought of is how there's a lot of people who is the whole thing of free your mind, get out of the shackles. There's also a lot of people who would talk about drug use and things like that,
sure.
The ayahuasca and different things. The guy even says, do you ever feel like you're still dreaming? And the guy's like, oh yeah, man, mescaline. It's the only way to fly.
Oh, the first one, right?
so it's interesting how we got these two pills, one that makes you more, connected to the system, and then another, ingestible substance that then supposedly makes you see outside of the, which like, cause I'm not recommending drug use or anything, illegal
sure.
substances, but I am fascinated by listening to people who have taken them. It's a very, very interesting experiences that these people have had. and whether that's hallucinations or they're actually seeing the veil. I mean, beyond the veil, but I don't know. It's just very interesting that we have these two things, but yet both of them you could say might be taking you out of reality. Either way, both could be a form of escape, or I don't know. I'm just kind of talking. I just came up with this. I haven't dug into this. It was just kind of something.
Right.
No, that's interesting though.
Fully. That's interesting because I'll say, I mean, you're coming back. I mean, we're talking about Matrix 4 a little bit. So we're trying to figure out, okay, what are we seeing here in the trailer?
Sure.
Which I thought was a great trailer.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it was a good trailer. Yeah.
And the Alice song,
yeah.
And then, we see Alice in Wonderland book and how far down the rabbit hole, kind of a thing.
Right. And we've had the White Rabbit since the first movie too.
Yes. Yeah. So it's almost soft rebootish so far. Like it's the same kind of thing of Neo waking up. You got the pills, you got the Alice in Wonderland references. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But it's one of the things I like about the new one too. So at the end of the film, you see that because they do a lot with colors in these. So whenever they're in the real world, it's blue. It's very blue tinted. Whenever they're in the Matrix, it's very green tinted. And then the third one, they have kind of the spirit realm that's more gold. But then at the end of the movie, the Matrix is inside the Matrix is now a vibrant place. There's a lot more colors. It's a lot more just a lot more beautiful. And you kind of see that within the new trailer as well, that whenever they're in the Matrix, it's not this super green, oversaturated thing. It's this very bright, colorful world, which, I think will make a good aesthetic for the films.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. It's going to be, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's interesting. Do you think we'll get some questions answered, or do you think it's going to just create a whole bunch more?
I think they're more interested in creating questions than answers.
Well, yeah, I think they are more interested in creating questions because they want to do more movies. So,
well, I heard the one because it's only one of the siblings that's doing the new one, as to where before it was both of them, both of the Wachowskis. And I heard a statement from one of them, I forget which one, but said that they thought a lot of the ideas and themes are more out there now, or more part of our discussions, more part of because you'll see a lot of these things of disillusionment. You'll see in like Rick and Morty or these different shows of just kind of pulling back the veil on what looking at the man behind the curtain, like a Wizard of Oz kind of a thing of struggling with nihilism, questions of because that oh man, I'm sorry, I just said something that could send us, and I'm not even gonna go there. Never mind.
Okay, it's gonna get real deep, everybody.
yeah. Well, okay. So I will say this. So here's one of the interesting questions. This is one of the things that we're struggling with and wrestling with, is this idea of what is the truth? What is the real world? Now, this plays off of Plato had this allegory of the cave, where he said there once was a man, all these men, they were chained in a cave, and there was a fire behind their back, and all that they could see throughout their whole life was the flickering shadows on the cave. And then they believed that that's all that life was, that instead of seeing the guys here and there, they would just see, this shadow over there, this shadow over here. And so eventually one of the men escaped from the cave. He got out of his shackles and he went outside and he saw reality, and it was beautiful. The sun was beaming on his face. He could feel the soft grass on his feet, and he could smell the flowers, and he was amazed. So then he goes back into the cave to free his brothers, but then they call him a madman, and then they murder him. And so there's a lot of that within here, this idea of that the world that you think that you live in, there's a lot more underneath. There's a deeper reality, but within Matrix, here's the twist.
The Matrix is actually the beautiful, and and the real world is the decayed and ugly.
Yes.
Yeah.
The truth in our modern age is horrifying. It's nihilistic. There's no real purpose. There's no meaning. It's just although actually, I guess they get meaning for, we're going to fight these machines. We're going to bring down the machines. This is our purpose. This is what we're doing. But yet Cypher presents a very, very strong argument of, you call this freedom? Eating this slop? I have to take orders from Morpheus. I'm a soldier. Do you think that a soldier's life is one of freedom? No.
I have to admit, watching it, there was a part of me that went, would I really want the real world then? Because this real world sucks. I'm sorry.
I want this delicious steak.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. But on the other hand, the Matrix, nothing is real either. So
but then Morpheus, he does this thing where he says, well, how do you define real? If it's just what your senses can detect, then, what actually is reality? What is real?
But then the scary thing is we're on the verge of this stuff. If you think about it, Facebook's getting ready to change to Meta.
Yes.
And the whole Meta thing. We're on the verge of this.
We are.
So yeah, we could be looking at this in real time.
Yes, it's kind of terrifying, and seems like
I agree.
And so this is one of those interesting questions about, like, what is the value of something that is real? And so this is a thing. So for me, from a spiritual perspective, and what I take from the films is, that there is a deep reality. There is some things actually matter. Because if there is no God, we're just animals. We're just going by our impulses. We pretty much are just machines. This is something even you get a lot of the atheistic thinkers like Sam Harris. He'll say this. He's like, I don't believe in free will. It's like, I think that you perceive you have free will, but there are things beyond your control that we're just kind of following with how we were shaped. And that's just kind of that. Or Dawkins, he would say, we're just dancing to our DNA, just doing whatever our impulses happen to tell us. But if there is something, if there is a reality, this is something worth standing up for and fighting for. And but the atheistic case of that, because there could be a disillusionment of spiritual. Because if you get to that nihilism, that place of saying, oh, there's just nothing. You live, you die, and that's it. It's just nothing. And so people would talk about this. So I just started reading a Dostoevsky. I can't pronounce it. Dostoevsky.
Good. That'll work.
Yeah. And so apparently they talk about some things in here. This idea of the noble lie of, is it better to give people something that helps them, even if it's not true? Or if we think about Dark Knight. So at the end of Dark Knight, he says, oh yeah, I'm going to preserve the image of Harvey Dent because it helps people. It makes people do better. People will live better, happier lives with this lie than with the truth.
Right. Batman starts to go on the run.
Yes.
And Commissioner Gordon basically asks him, why are you doing this? And he said it's because that's what Gotham needs.
Yes.
Yeah.
They need to be lied to. So if we think about, now the funny thing is, so some people would take this as looking at religion. So some people would say that, and then there's a lot of the more modern atheist thinkers that I'll listen to. They'll say, like, look, we need religion. We need these things. I don't believe it. I don't think this is real, but I think as a society that we need this. So we should encourage this. We should allow it. We should have that, even though I personally don't believe it. But for me, what I would say as far as the atheistic side of noble lies, like even the question of human rights, like who says that humans just have right, that humans should be preserved? Like you watch 300 at the beginning, they say, oh, this baby is weak, we're going to kill it. Now that's wrong. Right. That's evil. Well, why? If everything's just culturally based, just subjective, based on whatever your culture happens to say, then the Spartans, they're just following their culture. And why not? Why shouldn't they just destroy their weakling youngins? And so, yeah, so that is this thing of it's kind of interesting. And that's sort of the reconstruction, because what you end up getting within the Matrix is that, and this is what I think they really could have done a much better job within the third one, of essentially saying, this doesn't have to be oppressive. This doesn't have, like, we get this idea that if anybody tells me what to do, that's oppression. And I don't think so. I think sometimes there is oppression. There are things telling you what to do that are oppressive. But then there's other, like, okay, don't kill people. It's like, well, I want to do what I want. Why are you oppressing me? I thought this was America. If you look at South Park, never mind. Yeah, it gets very interesting and very, and you have to wrestle with this. But it's the thing of that if we really go deep down, here's another great thing C.S. Lewis says. He says, we look through the window to see the garden outside. So you look through the lies, you look through the whatever, because I'm trying to see the truth. It's like, but what if the garden was also see-through? And I just looked through that as well. And then I kept looking. He's like, to see through everything is the same as not to see. That if you're just, oh, well, that's just that, or this is just, you're just responding to this evolutionary impulse, and that's just control, and that's just the government doing this or that, then eventually, like, it's just blindness. It's just like you cut off the branch that you're sitting on, and kind of cut off all the reason that even allows you to think about these things. And it gets very confusing, and there's a lot to go.
Aaron, my brain's hurting.
I know. Oh, I know. That's what I love about these films. That's what I love about this, is that it can spark.
It does spark great conversations and philosophical, and throwing in the philosophy of religion along with philosophical concepts like nihilism and in others. The interesting thing was it was mixing in, even the second film started mixing in. Obviously, the first film had a lot of Judeo-Christian imagery and storytelling.
Sure.
The second one brought in a lot of Hinduistic. I don't want to say Hinduism, because Hinduism is the word we describe all the different religions in Hinduism. Especially with the concept of karma and rebirth and reincarnation,
and especially the thing of living in a dream world is very close to Hinduism. They that life is an illusion. That's very strongly tied to Hinduism.
Yes. Yep. And so you begin to see that, but then you're throwing in reality. And for those in the philosophical realm, you may know this, the cosmological dilemma, or the cosmological epistemological dilemma. Cosmology is what is real. Epistemology, what is true. And when you define one, the dilemma is when you define one, you define the other. If you define what is real, then you have then defined what is true. If you define what is true, then you have defined what is real. And one of the things the Matrix does is really kind of twist that a little bit. The film's like, well, wait a minute, is that true or is that real? Or do we define, when we define what is true, what is real? But it's in philosophy, it's called the cosmological epistemological dilemma.
One of the things that I got rewatching it this time was the whole thing of the idea of, like, I don't know if this would be the right term, but sort of like a false truth. So, Neo, he's going to see the Oracle, and she says, don't worry about the vase. What vase? Turns around, knocks over the vase. Oh, I'm sorry. I told you not to worry about it.
Yeah.
And so she says, he's like, well, what's going to really bake your noodle is,
I like this line,
over if I didn't say anything. So the Oracle tells Neo, you are not the one. But yet that leads to him going to save Morpheus, embracing his power, and then Morpheus tells him, she told you exactly what you needed to hear. And that's all. So it's almost like this thing of questions of truth versus reality, like a question of, what we need to hear versus what is actually real. So you have some of these, as I said, the more
that goes back to your noble lie.
Yes.
Right.
So that's the noble lie. The idea of that.
I've had this conversation within ministry, and I totally, hands down disagree with the concept. I understand it, and I know, so I'm on the.
And
spectrum.
I do too. I just like to anytime I'm presenting another idea, I like to be as truthful of it as possible.
It is let me rephrase it. When I disagree with the idea is there. I understand the idea. There is the spectrum of people who agree with it and the spectrum of people who disagree with it. Yeah. I disagree with it only from and I have my reasons for it and stuff like that and why. But you are onto something about, well, if it's what you need to hear. Well, who gets to determine? Here we go. We're going philosophical on the Matrix.
What you need to hear.
Who determines that?
Right.
See, and this is I like your window with C.S. Lewis, the window in the garden.
Yes.
Because then I'm using my filter, how I view the world, and I'm putting that on you, saying this is what you need. And I think that's a lot of the problem is with our world today. We don't put each other in other people's shoes, or we don't put ourselves in other people's shoes. We say, no, these are my shoes, and you need to wear my shoes. So this is my noble truth, and I'm going to give you a noble lie, so you can see from because this is how you should is my shoes or my rose-colored stained glass window. How to see things. And so, sorry, there's a Petra reference.
Yes, and it was running through my head when I'm like, oh, I got to listen to Petra after we're done now.
Right. So, no, but I think you've picked up on something really good that I had not thought about or processed before within the Matrix is this concept of this is what you need to hear, or this is, so. Yeah, but it's what you need to hear, what brings me happiness, and I assume that's what brings you happiness. Or that's interesting, and I appreciate you bringing it up because now my brain's hurting processing.
Oh, it does,
kind of a thing, Oh
yeah, we're doing some mental push-ups here. It definitely goes far, but and so that's one of those things as well, is that idea of structures upon structures upon structures, where people are. As pulling back the truth, keep pulling back. Oh, but you're still controlled by this or controlled by that. And one of the interesting things about even like freedom, this idea of, so sometimes when people have this idea that in order to be free, I have to be free to do whatever I want to do. That if you criticize me, you are limiting my freedom. If you tell me I'm wrong with something, you're limiting. So you need to be exactly like me. And in order for me to be free. And that's what we see with Agent Smith on the second movie. So his oppression, his system is literally duplicating himself into everybody, turning everybody, because that's his whole thing. He says, I need to be free. I need to be out of this place. I hate this place.
First film,
it's stink and all this stuff. And so and so for his notion to be free, he has to make everyone just like him. And so it's like, okay, so we have the oppression of the Matrix, but then we have this huge oppression of Smith. And so the whole thing of peace with the Matrix is almost this thing of understanding, no, we do need some type of societal boundaries. We do need some kind of structure. We do need something that we can sit on, or else we get to this horrific oppression that tries to make everyone exactly the same. Because there's still a lot of differences and diversity found within, the Matrix, and people are out, but it's nowhere near what you're up against with Smith. Like, that's true oppression. We could talk about, America's by no means perfect. I do enjoy this country, but there's some people who will say like, oh, it's oppressive on this way. It's oppressive. It's like, if you think that's oppressive, let's look at a history book. Okay?
Right. Yeah.
Have you ever been overseas? That's the question I ask for a lot of people. Have you ever gone overseas to see really what it's like and how blessed we are?
Oh yeah.
Kind of a thing. Yeah. It almost takes me back to Weird Al's Third World Problems or First World Problems.
First World Problems.
Sorry.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So with the concepts behind the Matrix and the concept of oppression, I think I haven't looked at it that way. I like that because he is, it does beg the question, I think, to go into conformity. the issue of conformity.
Mm-hmm.
I think that may be part of it too.
Yeah.
But overall, I think you're right. The first three films really get you talking from a philosophical point of view.
Oh, yeah.
That people who normally don't do philosophy
Yeah.
are like, oh, my brain hurts, you know, kind of a thing. It got them talking about it.
Yes. And that's what I think the first one did such a masterful job with, is that it just kind of sprinkles it in there. And it's enough for, and it's a very strong story, so anyone can enjoy it. There's a few things that you might catch on to here and there, but the second and third ones, they push the philosophy up so heavy.
Match it up.
I think that's something that really just broke a lot of people.
Wow.
Where it's just like, I can't even follow. It's like, it's so much, I don't even know what you're talking about.
That's true. That's a great concept, but the aspect of when I go to a movie, sometimes I just want to popcorn munch.
Yep.
Sure.
I want to get away. I don't want to have to think about a lot of things because I have enough of my own real world stuff that I have to process that I need a break just to let my mind rest. So then I can go back and, refuel to work on some of my real world. But I like going to a movie and shut my brain off for a while sometimes. But The Matrix does not let you do that.
No. Which I embrace all of those. I am happy with those different forms of entertainment. Yeah. Sometimes it's escapism, and that's perfectly fine. But then other times, it's these masterful.
That's why, Mike, I told you, I was like, once you get through the freeway scene on the second movie, you're good.
Yeah, no, to me, it's like, it's that conversation. It's the ending that
with the architect.
Yes, that's the thing that elevated it to just, oh man, it's still something hard to wrap your head around of what they're trying to do. And something I appreciate as well with these films. So something they talk about in literary circles, this idea of death of the author. And that's the idea that it doesn't matter what the author says or thinks, what the author says they are trying to go for. The only thing that matters is your own interpretation of it. Do you have textual evidence? Now, I can't just insert, I think Neo's actually a cow. The whole movie's a dream within a cow. And no, you can't do that. But you can try to find, and if you can find that, if you have evidence, then it's true for you. Then which I have mixed feelings on, because for me, I've written things, and sometimes I have a very specific purpose of it. And it's like, no, that's not what it means. There's this feeling of sometimes wanting that control, but something that I feel like it's disrespectful to authors sometimes. So sometimes I'll see somebody will make a story, and then someone will say, oh, this story is racist, or this story, oh, they're trying to say this about these people. And the author's like, what? No, that's not what I was getting at all.
So you're talking about the balance between author intent and the concept death of the author.
Yes. So
like when let's take paintings and artistry. On some art you have abstract art that's meant to invoke and emotion or a thought process. But sometimes there's art that's done for specific. Here is what I'm trying to communicate. Very quickly. So you're saying that you're applying that abstract or concept of, hey, what do you think about this? And the reader gets to, or gets to interpret rather than the author gets to interpret.
Yeah,
so
I
the
think
writers, the Wachowskis, absolutely. And I think that, so I like to take, that's actually a perfect analogy. If the author had a specific purpose, I want to go with what the author says. But in the case of this film, the authors have said, make up your own mind. We had our intentions of what we were going for, but this is yours to get what you want out of it. And so it's kind of, it's instead of death of the author, it's almost suicide of the author, of that like, look, we are taking off our interpretations and we're giving this to you to determine what you think about it. And so I really appreciate that. When people do that, whenever they say this is meant to be interpreted by your own means.
Here's the other thing I think some of it is there was a certain time within religious circles, especially Protestant Christian circles, of a time where it was really, you had a lot of church. I don't want to say philosophers, but individuals, well, maybe philosophers that were
Theologians.
Say that again.
Theologians.
Yeah, that were very much asking questions.
Mm-hmm.
The way of teaching was asking questions and letting people kind of explore from their own point of view. And the Matrix is really, I think, the beginning of that, even that time period within Christianity, that there was that concept where people are like, well, I'm just asking questions. And that's where you got into the concept of narrative, and narrative theology made a big comeback and those kinds of things. There's nothing new under the sun.
Well,
of course not. Yeah.
The whole teaching through asking questions, that's a very Jewish concept, because that's the way the Jews would do things.
It is a rabbinical framework.
Right.
And
because they would read and then they would question, and then they would philosophize back and forth of what that actually meant. So, that's a very Jewish concept right there.
Mm-hmm. They threw in a whole bunch of stuff, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So that's a big part of these, getting you to ask questions. And there are some things in these films that I still just don't understand at all what they were doing. But I asked the question. I say, like in the third movie, there's this part because like Neo starts seeing sort of this. He becomes blind and sees sort of a spiritual world, which is interesting considering how much of these stories are about waking up, and then he actually becomes blind it's almost like another awakening that he's blind to the real world and sees maybe the deeper world, you could say. And he sees the robots as these gold things. And there's this one part where one of the robots like goes through him and Trinity's like, oh, I got you. And it's just like, I have no idea what's going on there.
Right.
Yeah. There's a lot of things but we can ask the questions. And,
that's an interesting point. That was he blind? He had to become blind to the quote unquote real world to really see what's behind in the real world outside of the Matrix, but yet it was still connected to the Matrix.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's
some interesting thoughts, but my brain's hurting.
Oh, it does that. It absolutely does that.
To quote my nephew when he was younger, when he had a major headache, my brain hurts.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you know what? That's good. Like I try to teach my students all the time. It's good to get there. If you're exercising, means that your muscles are hurting. That's good for you. If your brain hurts,
that's true.
That means that we're learning. It's okay to go through that. And that's Matrix.
So can I just stick to my Sudoku puzzles for exercise brain? No, I'm just kidding. Philosophy hurts.
Wow.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So, okay, predictions for the fourth film. Let's hit that. We'll wrap up with that. Do you think we have already said a little bit, are they going to answer questions? No, we're probably going to come up with more. I think we just now, we just kind of walked through that a little bit more. What are you looking forward to in this film then, if that's the case? I'm looking forward to seeing some more action, some
absolutely
Western style action. I don't know how far I want to go with he doesn't remember anything. I hope that part of the story progresses quickly, because I'm like, I've been there. I don't want to go through this again, kind of a thing. I really want it to move along and give me the sequel side of it, not the tension before I really know what's going on to get the sequel part. Does that make sense? Like, okay, We're in the dark here. No. Just pick up where the other one. Just start, explaining it. Don't take me around a whole roller coaster, or a quote unquote.
I don't think we're gonna be in that realm for long. I think we're gonna be in it just enough to know, something has happened, and then I think we'll move quickly into the sequel territory and get some idea of what's going on here. The big question is Neo actually the chosen one or not? I think that's the big question that's going to get answered in this film, because really we still don't know if he's actually the chosen one. There's been this question, and they even say it in the trailer that he said that Trinity has always believed that he is the chosen one, but he didn't believe it. And he was told by the Oracle that he wasn't the chosen one either, which, by the way, I also like that character a lot too. I like the Oracle. I thought the Oracle was pretty interesting.
Sadly, she passed away, and so then in the third movie, they had to get another actress to play her, and they kind of, they address it. They're like, who is this girl? And she'll say,
I wonder if they'll use that same thing for Morpheus.
That's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering if because that guy seems so similar.
They say he's Morpheus. He is Morpheus.
He is?
If you look it up. Yeah, if you look it up, that he's Morpheus, and even the actor said he was Morpheus. Is that a deflection?
Well, from what I gathered, he is Morpheus, but he's like the rebirth of Morpheus. So, because again, we got this whole rebirth thing storyline that goes on throughout the Matrix, and I mean that's some of the ideas I've heard thrown out there. I don't know if that's exactly what's going to happen or not, though. But I've kind of thought, okay, maybe he is the rebirth of Morpheus. So he is Morpheus, but he's not. And Neo doesn't trust him because Neo says, Neo's like, you're not Morpheus.
Yeah. So, actually, you're right. He is labeled as Morpheus. That's his name on here.
But there's this distrust between him and Neo, though.
Well, it's interesting because even the name is Matrix Resurrections. So, I guess because I think what they did after the movies, they created a MMORPG game that was supposed to continue on the story and everything. And because they tried to do that a lot. They had a whole video game with scenes from some of the actors, cut scenes in there. And they said, okay, this video game, this is canon. What happens in here actually happens. And so they're, we're big fans of that. And I think within that sequel game that I don't know a single person who played it. It really wasn't that popular.
It was called Enter the Matrix, wasn't it?
I think so. But Morpheus died in that game. So, so that's interesting. So you'll have resurrections of all of them, but then what kind of, is it actually them? Is it,
are they just creations from the Matrix?
Yeah. Are they rebirthing these old, it could be even like in Jurassic World, how the whole movie was kind of a commentary on rebooting old sequels. And that was a weird one because the whole time they're kind of like, oh, the original's better. We don't like all this new stuff. It's like, yet
it's funny. I agree with them.
And it's like, and you're doing it. It's the whole movie. Telling us to get the speck out of our eye with the plank in their own.
Well, now I watched Emergency Awesome this morning. He did a breakdown of the Matrix trailer, and he pointed out that when you see Neo, he has more, connections, ports, holes in him than he did in the original. He looks different, of course he's going to look different. He's 20 years older, but he the character looks different than what he did in the original film. So, there's still question of is he part of the Matrix? Is he who he says he is? I don't know.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Maybe even I don't know. I'll have to look into that. Because there's even an interesting thought about what if the people who are in there, so maybe they look like Neo, but maybe it's actually a different person inside even. Like maybe they're using a different person to become that. I don't know.
It's going to be mind twisting for sure.
Oh, it will. So as far as what I'm looking forward to is honestly just the discussions, these kind of things, the puzzle, getting to okay, what are they going for with this? What is that? I really, I really like these kind of things where it's not just handed to us. Like you really have to kind of have to dig in. Sometimes I like it handed to me. Sometimes I just want to watch like an Indiana Jones or something and just, oh look, they're Nazis are melting. That's fun.
Or Godzilla versus King Kong.
Exactly.
Yes.
The superb Twinkie. Exactly.
That's right.
Yes.
Which, by the way, we're about to get the superb Twinkie back again. Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if the Twinkie's going to be in there, but Ghostbusters is coming up. So Ghostbusters actually opened this weekend, and I'll be going to see it for our Thanksgiving movie because we always have a movie that we watch on Thanksgiving. So
that's fun.
We'll be reviewing that one next week. So. That's
good. Yeah, I love the director, who's the original director's son.
Yes,
he's a really talented guy. Did Juno and Up in the Air. Yeah, it'll be fun.
It'll be good. I'm looking forward to that. Okay,
hey guys, we had a good discussion on this one.
Wow. Oh yeah.
Well done, man. All right. Well, I'm sure we will continue the journey as The Matrix 4 comes out. And Aaron, hey, thanks for joining us for this because this was, I thought this would serve as a great reminder, refresher, resurrection of the ideas, behind The Matrix to help us lead into the new one. So for those of you listening, we'd love to hear your thoughts about it.
Yeah.
Matrix 1, 2, 3. Did you like them? What was your Bendy Spoon score as well? We'd love to hear from you on our Facebook page is the best spot for interactions with us. And we would just love to hear from you. And so, Mike, any last thoughts? Aaron, any last thoughts?
Aaron, go.
So, man. Certainly, nice. I definitely want to...
I see the smoke coming out of your ears.
You know what? It's just something of the amazement of what film can do. Just the fact that stories, that all these things, that, I mean, they can change people's lives. They can have that sort of awakening, these ideas of that, maybe I should be critical of some things and look deeper. Maybe things aren't always the way that I think that they are. And I need to get out of my own perspective of things and just digging deeper in life that stories can do this. Stories are, I mean, they're magic. I mean, that it's almost like you watch a spell, they have these lights and these words are like these incantation that I see this. And by the end, my brain is changed. I have something completely new going on thinking about, and just, it's remarkable that stories have this power, to make us question, to make us dig in, to make us, I mean, it's kind of the fabric of our society. I mean, if you want to know what a culture is, look at their art, look at their stories, look at what they hold as good. And that's, it's very profound. And I really hope, what my biggest hope with these films are, because I feel like Matrix it was huge. And then it just kind of drifted off. I feel like a lot of people have kind of forgotten about it. It's not as much still part of the conversation. And I hope with the new one that it just sparks a new generation to go back to these, to keep digging, keep asking questions, to be open about these, spiritual realities. I mean, this is a great, you ever trying to share your faith with somebody, Matrix is a great way to do it. I'm just saying, do you think that life might be different than how we perceive it? Do you think there might be more going on, just like in the Matrix? And so I'm very excited for the new one. I'm hoping that it's if it's not good, I'm hoping it at least sparks good discussion.
Nice.
Yes. I love it.
All right. Yeah. I think that was well said. Thank you. All right, with that said, let's take this thing out of here. We'll see you next time. Over and out. And will you take the red pill or will you take the blue pill? Thank you for joining us today on the Two Geeks and a Microphone podcast. Tune in next week when we will have more news and reviews. Until then,